To that end, I'd like to invite Shirin Alipana, Senior Director, PMO Enterprise Analytics for Bumblebee Foods, Amy Defford, Director of IT Operations, WD-40 Company, Angela Moran, CIO, California Coast CU, Credit Union, Valerie Polisher, Director of Academic Technology Services, University of California, and Manjula Swaminathan, AVP IT Product Management from ServiceLink. All right, 2 minutes or less each. We are just setting the stage here. 2 minutes or less each. Give a quick background about yourself and the organization you belong to, and your concise view on the current state of gender gap in technology. All in 2 minutes or less.
Okay. Hi, I'm Manjula Swaminathan. I work for ServiceLink. We are title escrow and mortgage solutions company. We are part of Fidelity National Financial. And my role there is I'm the AVP for IT product management. I do manage the default products. So from a standpoint of where we stand on the women in IT, I think there is a big gender gap, and that's because we don't have enough girls in STEM to get into the IT. And even if we are here, getting to the level of breaking the ceiling is always a tough thing. Yeah. So do I continue? Yeah, that is a struggle.
Okay. We'll leave it at that and we'll discuss solutions.
Valerie Polishar, I'm the Director of Academic Technology Services at the University of California, San Diego. I've been at that institution since 1986 in a variety of capacities, and I would say that the problem is getting worse. When I was a new manager in the late 80s, I had a staff of 5 direct reports, and those were all managers themselves. And of those direct reports, 3 were women of color, 1 was a man of color, and 1 was a white man. I couldn't do that today given the staff in my organization, because I simply don't have that quantity of women and people of color who are in any roles. And how do we attract them? It's a growing problem rather than one that we've mastered more over the years.
Angela Moran, I'm the CIO for California Coast Credit Union. I've been there for almost 3 years now. We are, in terms of the organization, we are the oldest credit union in San Diego, celebrating 90 years. In terms of the gender gap, I would say yes, there's a gender gap, of course, but I also see a huge issue around diversity as well. And I know it's kind of a buzzword, but inclusion goes along with that. So as a leader, the onus is on me to make sure that my teams are diverse, there's thought leadership that doesn't just represent a certain cookie cutter mold, but that all thoughts are represented. So I think it's more than just gender, it's gender and diversity on teams.
And I'm Amy DeFord. I work at WD-40. Most of you would think WD-40, probably a whole bunch of men, but actually within our organization, within IT specifically, our leaders, all 3 of us are actually women. I'm very proud of that. I've been there a short period of time, and I really take pride in WD-40 as a company. It's been very good. I've been within IT for 22 years. I have seen all variations, being one of the guys to all the way to where I'm at today. So yeah, there definitely is a gap. I think there's opportunities for all of us to do things about it.
Hi, I'm Shirin Alipana. I'm Senior Director of Program Management at Bumblebee Foods, and I also oversee enterprise analytics for the company. I've been with Bumblebee for almost coming up to 7 years. So from my point of view, just following along what my colleague said here, yes, gender gap exists, and it's visible everywhere to us, at least to us women, maybe not too visible for male counterparts here, but I don't know how many of you have read a new report that McKinsey released about 2 weeks ago, Women at the Workplace. Did anybody read it? No. So how many years do you think it's going to take us here in the United States to reach gender parity? Just take a guess. In North America, in the United States. 208 years. I'm not going to see it. My kids won't see it, and maybe their kids won't see it. So that's a big problem that we need to find a solution for, and this is what we are going to discuss today.
All right. That raises the stakes, right? All right. How many of you from the audience members have seen some sort of gender bias in action in your companies? Okay. So, sir, what did you do about it in the position you are in? No, we're going to get started now. We're going to just get started to see when it happened, were you an observer? Did it boil your blood? Did you go kick someone? At what level did you take it so that we take ownership of this problem? Because it's hurting us too, right?
Yeah, so this it came at an opportune time. We just had a offsite for our leadership team that talked about biases and how unconscious bias can impact our views. And when I saw this, it happened to be with a peer of mine. I think it was an unconscious bias towards this, but I actually, we spoke about it just because there was that opportune time of how we can identify unconscious bias through our peers.
So you started the conversation. Very good. What else? Who else tried to do something to tackle it? Yes.
So I found out after the fact, probably about a year ago, that someone got let go because of an indiscretion. And I was like, if it was a man, it would have never mattered. So I requested she got hired back, and I just shoved her down HR until she got hired again at like a 20 to 30% raise. And she's one of the most productive people at our company. She solves a lot of problems, gets everything done. And yeah, so it worked out in that instance. I guess I wasn't successful in creating a policy for them to be knowledgeable, but the powers that be, I couldn't control them. So I did what I could in the moment.
Very nice. Anyone else? Anything you tried on the ground? Yes, sir. You can start talking.
So I run a small company, some 250 people or so. So this is primarily most of the resources are based in India. And about 8-9 years ago when I started, I learned that there's an inherent bias in hiring women in India. For example, my HR guy would think, hey, you're hiring someone in their early 20s. They're going to probably take a maternity leave and then go off for 6 months. Questions like that were hampering their decision making. And so as a policy, we said, we're not going to do that. We're just going to hire people for their skills. And we enforce those things. And we are actually almost 39% women in our company. So it works. If you actually put, your mind and effort into it, you can make a difference. Yeah.
So in your case, since you run the company, you have the power and the chops to go and say, make it happen. Come back to the panelists. How do you folks lead from the middle? You're not the CEOs, you're not the top folks. How are you influencing your respective organizations so that the right things get done? That's leadership, right? Not doing things right. Right things getting done. What are you doing to that end? Anyone? What have you tried?
I'm not the CEO yet, but
I'm saying that's exactly what I'm saying. So if you were a CEO, it would have been a non-issue, right? You would have enforced the policy. I'm saying, how do you lead from the middle? How do you create the influence from the position you are in so that you start making a dent on this problem?
I think you have to walk the walk, right? And really promote the women in your organization. And believe it or not, I was recently at a conference for, I think it was UltiPro. It's a company that does HRIS systems. And the conference was about women in leadership, and there were so many women that have been held back by other women. And I've been fortunate in my career. I've had very, very supportive colleagues, very supportive bosses who were women. But I was amazed to hear how many people had been really pushed down by their fellow peers. So for me, it's being active in the community, being active in women in technology, and really promoting the women that work for you. So you kind of have to walk the walk, in my opinion.
Any other ideas or things you tried?
One of the things I do is, provide some flex schedule, especially, understand most of the women, a lot of the times they do hold back because they do have the responsibility of taking care of the children. If it looks like even though it's husband and wife are there, it's women end up being that caretaker most of the time. It just happens to be that way. So in order for them to pursue that as well as pursue their career and streamline, propel in that, I do try to provide the flex schedule, which can help in some way. If they have to go for pick up their kids for a certain point, and then we are in IT. We have the way to progress. We have a way to work even remote. Then why not go for it?
So like Angela said, I go to a lot of networking events. I like to interact with organizations. So I volunteer with I moved here from Texas a few months ago, so I volunteer with Texas Best. It's like a robotics organization that helps children within high schools learn how to do robotics, and there's boys and girls in these classes. And just seeing, one girl in some type of STEM organization like that is very satisfying for me. Seeing one graduating University of Texas and going and being an engineer is just good, and I just think it's just one, but it definitely makes a difference being part of those organizations.
In terms of influencing up and down within the organization, I happen to have a background in psychology. I have a doctorate in psychology, and so I sometimes try to share some of the research with my peers and even with my superiors. And one thing we've learned is that we all sort of want to make sure we have inclusive interview panels, so we try to have a woman in the room. Sometimes I'm the woman in the room. Well, it turns out that when you have multiple women in the room, when you have multiple members of underrepresented minorities, you get a very different interview than when you have one. And so if I'm a woman coming in for an interview and I come into a diverse interview panel and I see several women sitting around the table, I'm going to interview differently than when I walk in there and there's one, and I know she's the token woman that was asked to be on that panel. So sharing that information with my colleagues has made them begin to think differently about, how do we construct an interview panel. Some of these small awarenesses that it's simply that we don't all have this information and we can put it to use if we have it.
Okay. Well, for me, just like everybody else said, I think getting involved in organizations and attending events and talking about it in public, it's helping the community to build awareness. I mean, that's the first thing, awareness and education in the community that we live in. Because men are our allies. We need you guys to help us to get there, and that's one thing that we all have to work on together. Within the company, it's the same way. It starts with education, making sure everybody understands this something that exists, this issue exists, and kind of help you how to resolve that issue. Find internal allies. It could be our bosses, and I'm going to get down to that. It could be anything else in the company, anybody else in the company who would be willing to step up and ally with you and talk about it and help resolve the issue.
So we had one gentleman at one of these sessions that I was running. He stood up and he says, men are not all that bad. We are good people. But sometimes we don't even understand when we are saying things or doing things that may be coming across as a biased behavior. And I'm not sure how many males in this room would feel the same way, because I do not know, I'm not that bad, but I'm coming across as a jerk, right? What do you think has to be done at that fundamental level versus doing a damage control or post-damage fix? That we train us men to say you are doing X. Like I'll just wanted to extend to that. One person said that when we have birthday parties at the office, birthday cake is cut, but you will see immediately all the men will go and hang out in one corner and women will automatically start going and cutting the cake and start distributing. Yes, sure. Right? This was observed by a woman. She says, yes, we are used to it, and we made men used to the fact that you sit, we will serve. This continued. Right? So what should men do differently, which does not promote bias? What should women do differently that it does not increase this problem and we are not creating the problem and then try to solve? Let's look at it fundamentally. What would you tackle?
So one of the things, as you said, the birthday parties and any office parties is something that I think it may be also because of the organizational skills that women have, then own it. I would like the men to also come up and, reach out and lend a hand in organizing any event like that as well. So that is one of the thing but within the IT, how do I get men to do things that, if there is a problem that needs to be explained, when the woman is talking, let her talk. That is one of the things that I see, that the mansplaining happens most of the time, especially when it comes to the technical explanation. So I think that is one of the things that we would like to give a chance.
Yeah, and really just to follow up on that, I speak with my staff about trying to avoid interrupting, and I'm a terrible interrupter actually, but to try to avoid interrupting folks in meetings, because not just women, but also from people from various cultural backgrounds may quiet as soon as they're interrupted, and they may never get a chance to articulate what they have to contribute. And we talk a lot about microaggressions, and I think that's it's an important conversation, but we talk a little bit in our workplace about microcorrections. Rather than lecturing somebody that they've done this terrible thing and making someone feel bad, which is not really the way to build allies, to say, I don't know if you noticed, but you interrupt Clara while she was talking in the last meeting. It might be worth letting her just finish her thought, because she will tend to not raise it again if she's interrupted. And if you make a micro correction like that very gently, and men can make it to other men, I have had it made to me, and I think that's not unreasonable. Anyone can participate in a micro correction. It doesn't have to be loaded. It doesn't have to be heavy. You don't want to make that person feel bad, but we can all gently change our behaviors.
Going down the line. I am so guilty of jumping in and serving cake. I really am. It's awful. I don't know if it's a woman thing or just a control freak thing, but I would take it a slightly different approach to it, and I would say looking at the long game, it's how we raise our boys, right? And how we raise our boys to be respectful of men and women, and cultivate those soft skills, like not interrupting people and letting people share their thoughts and ideas without feeling, judged and afraid to do so. So I look at it from a different perspective, and I have a young son, so hope I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, I too have a young son, so I think I try really hard to make sure that he's understanding. He knows me as a very strong, independent mom, woman, working in IT, which he wants to inspire to be an IT person at one time. And so I think it's just being a good role model. I mean, I know it sounds cheesy and corny and condescending sometimes, but I think it's just making sure that you kind of model who you want to be and who your children want to be, and even in your team. I mean, I have some young team members that I just make sure that they understand that, you know, we're all here as a family trying to get the right things done. And I think that's we have a very good value system at W40 where we have learning moments, which I think is very kind of aligns to what you're talking about. So I think that's a good segue for that.
Great. Well, from my point of view, I think historically we women have been known to be communal and caring. That's kind of almost expected of us to care for the team and to kind of be nice and happy and all of that. In order to change that, just like what these folks said, it starts from early on from home, from the kids. That's how we need to change. We need to change with our actions, our attitude, not just words. We can't just say, oh, I'm talking to my son, oh my God, you shouldn't care about your gender and the girls and boys are the same. We should actually model that at home. We should actually do that in our action and show it in our action so they learn and they take it through school and to work. A lot of things that can be done at corporate America is starting from hiring process, the job descriptions that we put out there. If I'm a developer and I'm applying for a developer job and I see like Java guru, I will never apply for that. It's just not my thing. It's more masculine type. Or you see some job descriptions that they say coding ninjas. They are not really gender specific. So let's try to start with that, trying to get our job descriptions not gender specific, and kind of include inclusive cultures in the company value system in those job descriptions and how this company cares about that and how company promotes that. So that would attract a lot more women than just men.
I'll share with you two instances which again were shared by folks like yourself. And one gentleman said, I'm the director of IT operations, help desk and support type operations. And I don't like to hire women. And the reason is because whenever you're in help desk and support and ops, you've got some or the other fire being fought, right? Something is always a crisis. And he says, when we are in crisis, we like to cuss. And I'm not sure if we had women in the room, we could do that. And I'm telling you, this actually was spoken in the room. And I'm going to make a point after I share this. The second was, he says, I don't like to hire women in my team because it's going to be cases there will be cases when things go south and you have to discipline, not exactly discipline, but take a person aside and kind of have a conversation so we can bring the performance back. But he says with all this Me Too movement going on, I don't want to be sued for sexual harassment. Two different extreme, but that actually was happening. It could be subconscious for some people are very blatant. And also one pattern was seen that never will someone do something like this openly. Most of the biases are seen in closed office meeting rooms, projects meetings going on, people talking to each other, boss or peers, they are demonstrating it, and the woman sitting on the inside, maybe a couple of them, they're thinking, should I bother? Because there is no HR policy against bias. There are policies against sexual harassment. And when you don't have a policy, there is no go-to person. And they say, did he mean it? Did he not mean it? Shall I go there? Is it going to rub them the wrong way? Etc., etc. So now the reason I'm bringing these things up, because we can talk all day, but we have to solve problems like these. How do we confront? And in this time, I'll just let you hold your thoughts. I would like to ask men in the room here. If you've seen some things like these happen and happen in the meeting rooms, etc., what have you done? Do you allow, do you support? So if your coworker is doing it, have you done something so that this stops? Because it's hurting all of us. Yes?
It's kind of crazy, but it's not that hard, guys. I mean, right? I mean, we're in this room, we're all in a position of leadership within our organizations, specifically IT. So those two examples you brought up with those guys, I don't want to hire women because of this. Frankly, they're idiots, okay? And And if I worked with those people, if I had somebody in my team that spoke like that or had some point of view that way, as a leader, you recognize that. You have to then educate those people that, look, first of all, you're a jerk, and maybe you're not a good part of this team. But really, we live in a different space. And I think perspective comes from each of us individually. I myself am a father of three girls. So being in IT, I knew right away it's going to be a little bit more challenging, if not a lot more challenging, for them to get where they want to be if they want to be in technology. And where I work right now with the Padres, we have an internship program that we go through every year. And I get to interview students that might be interested in IT. And over the last couple of years, I've been fortunate enough to get some really good students to come in, and they were all females, because look, maybe that's my bias. I really want to push them and encourage them to get into technology. But in speaking to them, and this is where I think a lot of the problems start, is they'll go into a program, say computer science. They'll start off, and they'll say, hey, I had about 30 people in my class. By the end of the semester, there's 5 of us left, because they've all gotten intimidated somehow. And I think that kind of goes into the people they're around, the mentors they have, the professors they have. And if you're in a position as a professor and you see those trends happening, you got to find some way to get involved. So as an IT leader, all I can do really is to educate once I have a person with me on what IT is and maybe help them find what they might want to do. And in fact, my last intern, she didn't know. I asked her a question first day. What do you want to do in IT? Do you have an idea? And she didn't really know what to do. So made it a point to introduce them to every single specialty within our department. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, as leaders within an organization, your job is to recognize those deficiencies, those flaws in character with people, and address it with them, you know? Because at the end, I mean, you're right. I don't want to wait 208 years for this to balance out. We can do a lot of it today, but part of it, I think, stems from, well, STEM. I mean, we need to keep these girls, these females, encouraged into things, and I've seen it change. I think the cyber landscape, being a cybersecurity specialist, I've seen that grow quite a bit. And I've seen a lot more females do that. Maybe it's because it's a lot more back of the house type stuff, you know? But to your point, maybe they're still cutting the cake every once in a while. But at least they're staying within the organization. So anyways, I think I said a lot, but those guys are idiots.
I want to just add to that I think it's important for women to realize that they might have behaviors that are holding them back, and to work on themselves rather than sort of like, you know, pointing at the males and saying they're holding us back. I think if males had some of these behaviors, they might be held back too. And there's a great book out there that's called How Women Rise by Sally Helgeson and Marshall Goldsmith. And when I read the book, I was just going through it. I'm like, yes, I do that, you know. And so I think for women, it's important to help themselves and to learn. Because if we find a supporter in one company, then we go to another company and we might not find a supporter. So it's important to realize yourself what behaviors you might have that are holding you back. And so I think what we can do is pass on this type of advice to other women in our field, and have them read that book, you know, and maybe have round tables where we discuss those problems together and how we can solve them.
Sure. Who else was there? I saw a few. Sure.
You know, to me personally, I'm not, you know, I was here in the same conference last year, and we had the same session, and this is the second time. And, you know, this is an eye-opener for me, but personally, this is what I want to share with you all, that is, you know, I've been in the U.S. for about like 25 years, and I worked for different companies. I have not seen this level of discrimination being described, but it exists, but I have not seen it. And one thing I want to, you know, why I'm saying that is what you started when you were presenting is that, you know, we need more hoppers. You know, I had like few openings in the last 1.5 years, and I had only one girl applied versus I had 50 different guys applied. And I gone through interviewing, you know, of course I filtered and interviewed that girl as well. But, you know, it's this completely different skill set, and I couldn't do it. It's not because of, you know, any bias. It's just not a good fit.
Okay. Coming back to you folks, a feedback that was given where a lady, one of the panelists said, that somehow men are very good with the BS. And the reason she said that is that suppose there is an opportunity that comes up and it requires 5 unique areas of competencies or skills required. Even if they can check off 2, they will say, yep, I can do it, and they'll jump in. And women will wait till the time they check all 5. Who is at fault? Who is doing the right thing and who is not doing the right thing? So if you say opportunities are not coming to women, is it self-inflicted or guys are way too aggressive and they run way faster? Wow, how do we tackle this? How do we equalize it or normalize it?
Well, I think this has a little bit to do with what you just mentioned as well. It's some problems that we have within ourselves. One is lack of self-confidence. That's one thing that we want. We are not really confident enough that we can get the job done and we are good enough for this position. And the second thing is I don't think we have been brought up or trained enough to be brave enough and get up and speak and say, I have 2 skills out of 5, but I'm ready to learn the rest of the 3. And I can do this. I can see it in myself. I think this is about us and the behavior that we have to change within us. And we just learning this. And these type of events, these books and these advices that we get from various groups, various events, those are very helpful. Those are the things that teach us to kind of not be afraid of that. It's not something that we can learn at the job. There are a lot, yes, to your point, a lot of men, they can get out on the job. They say, oh, we are perfect at this. We can get this done. But they get on and learn. But we are holding ourselves back.
I think this is why a lot of the attention to imposter syndrome and how to address it has been so important. And that is not exclusive to women. Men experience it too. There are cultural differences. But there are things you can do to get over your own imposter syndrome. And I think as women are, I think in particular, focusing on sharing with other women how to get past that. There are skills you can learn. There are ways to get past it. I expect that probably most of us on this stage have moved past it because moving past it at least enough to get to our current positions. And I think we're trying to share that understanding, and I think that's where personal responsibility can come in.
So did you, when you said you went past it, did you get some support from mentors or a so-called grooming system, or was it like you were?
I absolutely did. I had very strong mentors who were very helpful, and that made, I think, all the difference to my career as I went along. That was at a very young age. Not everybody has access to mentoring, although you look around, you usually can ask someone to be a mentor. By the way, that's not, again, exclusive to women. And I think it's beneficial to everyone as you go along. But in addition to that, there are resources to get over imposter syndrome that are worth turning to.
Yeah, one of the things, at least I do is I do mentor within the organization as well as outside. And I feel like one of the key things that helped me to get to where I am here is because the inherent, I have a strong mom who was always proponent of, speaking. Even though she did not have that opportunity, she did make sure that I do what needs to be done. And the other thing is, of course, have a support, have a partner who kind of is helping you build to that, come to that point. And those are some of the key things that helps to get women to where we are, at least from our perspective. And of course, within the organization, within the team, try to encourage, have events that bring the skill set of women and give them opportunity to train them, give them ample opportunity where they can be trained for leadership, to speak up, that is how you build the confidence in them.
So men in the room should not feel they are being attacked. And that's why they should give some inputs back to the ladies here in the room. So if you had to give some suggestions so that they can grow, not just women here, but overall, would there be any specific suggestions you would like to offer very quickly?
Yeah, I think a few years back I did a course at Stanford called Leading by Power. And one of the things which I think was takeaway is not only he or me or he or the man who can be angry, who can use that colorful language. It's absolutely okay for women, and I started that with my daughter, to be angry, to be upset, and to express that anger with a colorful language. It is absolutely okay, and that is the power that you should feel like you have it.
You know, my wife never attended that Stanford course, but she's pretty good at that. Yeah. No, but this is a good input. Any other inputs you'd like to give women, men folks here, what you feel that if you'd like to have women get to that next level, I'm not saying they're any less, but I'm saying to reduce the gender gap.
Yeah, I would just ask that you call us out when necessary, right? Because I think we have a lot of blind spots, myself included, and we don't always connect the dots. So the more feedback we get, the better, and we would appreciate it.
Okay, so let's close this by you, each of you sharing just one word, which should symbolize the mindset we should have in order to tackle this problem of gender gap. Just one word, which will symbolize what we should do or what we should have in our minds so that we are able to make a dent on this problem and chip away at it.
Courage.
Unique, not repeat.
Yes.
She took courage.
STEM.
Mentoring.
Oh, that was mine.
I would say engagement.
Mentoring was my thing.
Okay, we're not going to fight here, but thank you so much.
Okay.
It was a lovely conversation.
Right,
thank you.